Hello, fellow people of the Earth. I am Derry50 from Runecodes Productions, and welcome to Runecodes. This is a channel that I used it before in the past, but I made a few tutorials and they never really went well, and I've ended up deleting them now. But I'm gonna start completely fresh, and I know quite a lot about making Bukkit plugins, so I decided to make a tutorial on them, and a big tutorial series on multiple different kinds of Bukkit plugins, starting with this one here. And pretty much for this channel, the kind of Java knowledge you need to know is just the basic stuff. I mean, I know every single Java API is completely different, and you can't really know Java because every single Java API out there is just different. I mean, you can know the default things like how to, if statements, for statements, all that kind of stuff, arrays, but everything is different in Java, and that's why you need, it's different. And I mean, there are support forums in which people are just like, you should probably learn Java before doing this and blah blah blah. But honestly, nobody really knows complete Java. Besides, even the guy who created Java doesn't know Java, honestly, because it's different for everything, and you create the code when you make it. That's how coding works. So the knowledge requirements are very slim, just default stuff, knowing how to code, knowing just how default to code. So anyway, this series, in this playlist, we're going to create a plugin that allows that is a plugin I want for my server, and a plugin that I'm most likely going to post online as a open source plugin. And it's going to be a plugin that allows it saves the player's inventory, every player's inventory, after a certain amount of configurable time, and there are and then after a configurable amount of saved inventories, it deletes the old ones. And then if for any reason the owner needs to, any server admin has to roll back a player's inventory, they can use this plugin. So anyway, let's call this plugin InvBackup. So I just right-clicked in Eclipse, clicked a new Java project in InvBackup. By the way, you will need Eclipse for this. Just go to eclipse.com and download the Java IDE. There'll be a link in the description for that. So anyway, now we've created the project. We need the default files for this project. So open a web browser quick and go to download.bukkit.org, and then click alternate versions, and then download the craft Bukkit version you want to work in, and then click on Bukkit up here and get the version of the API that's the same as the version of the craft Bukkit server that you downloaded. And what you want to do once you download that is go to github.com/bukkit, and then go down to Bukkit, the Minecraft mod API down here, not anything else, and just click on that. And this is actually not really required what I'm doing right now, but I would recommend doing this. It makes everything a lot easier. Then you just click down here, download zip, and also download that. Actually, download a zip called bukkit-master. And then if we go back here, we can right-click on the project to click Properties, and then go to Java Build Path, add external jars, and then add all those things you just downloaded. So we want to add Craft Bukkit, and then add Bukkit. Click OK, and then go to Reference Libraries. Right-click on the Bukkit API, which is the bukkit.jar. Click on Properties, Java doc location, Java doc in archive, browse, and click bukkit.master.zip, and then click OK. And that what I just added, that Java doc, isn't really required. Doesn't seem like it. Does it work? Oh no, sorry, I am sorry. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to Java source attachment, external location, and then click bukkit-master, and then it's added. And that just helps out generally. What that did when I added the Java source is, if I just go into one of my classes here quick, let's go into Messenger that I created before. If we hover over logger, this shows the which one is Bukkit? Yeah, if we hover over chat color, this is a Bukkit thing. This is all supported color values for chat. If we didn't add the Java doc thing, we wouldn't have had that. And then everything else is the same. So anyway, I'm gonna exit out of this. And then one thing I'd recommend relating to is, if you go to jd.bukkit.org, then you probably want to click on the whatever build you're using. If it's a recommended build, click there, beta or development builds. I'm using a development build. You want to click on Java Docs, and then here's pretty much everything about Bukkit in one place for that version. Like, just go, if you want to see anything about player event, like Bukkit events, you just go to org.bukkit event. You go to event, and there's just a bunch of stuff. You can go to all the events, event.player, and there's all these different player events, like when a player, does all that stuff. Anyway, so you don't have to worry too much about that, because I'm going to be going through the majority of the stuff. But if you want to actually make your own plugin and not just copy me, which I know is probably what you're going to end up doing. I mean, I'm going to try and make it so you're not just copying me. Like, you have to do some of your own stuff too. I'm going to try and encourage you to make your own stuff, because that's just how you learn. You don't learn by copying someone else's work. But obviously, to learn the actual framework, you have to learn from somebody else, or or teach yourself. So anyway, let's right-click on right-click on your source folder, and click New Package, and type in what's preferred to type in is your website URL. So mine's com.rootocraft. And then plugins, and then the plugin name. If you don't have a website, you can use like your email too. So you can like put that backwards, or you just not use anything. I mean, you need to have some kind of package. So, and it can't be. You probably should have. This is kind of important, because if you use a package that's well known and everyone uses, it's gonna inflict with that package. Everything's not gonna work well. So you should probably make your own personal type of package. So com.runecodes.plugins.InvBackup, and click OK, and then create. And then the package is created, and it's currently empty. And if we right-click, I'm sorry about that Steam thing. 1 second, I'm gonna exit out of Steam. Alright, sorry about that. Anyway, right-click on your main package, and then click New, and then Class. And this is going to be the main class. This is the class that's going to be called when the plugin is first run. So we're going to call this InvBackup. Pretty much the same as the actual plugin name itself. And the main class will just relate to all the other classes. So this is just controlling everything. So for this main class, we're going to want to do everything. So we're going to first type in extends, and then Java plugin. And this is the plugin extension for Bukkit. If you don't do this, then your plugin won't actually be a plugin, and it won't actually work at all. So it would say couldn't find main class, and all that would happen. So anyway, let's type in public void on enable. This is the first method you want to use, and this is of course triggered on the enable of the plugin. Whether this be by reload, by plugin manager, by server start, this is what's going to be triggered. So anyway, let's type in. The first method we're going to create is going to be called load config, and this method is going to, of course, load the configuration file that we're going to use for a plugin. And every plugin wants to have its own configuration file. It's just best because you want the server owner to be able to customize the plugin. It's of course not really required, but for most plugins it's strongly recommended. So anyway, to load this config, I'm going to do a few things. First is we're going to want to find the directory in which the config is going to be created, along with any other plugin files too. So we're going to type in file and then directory equals this dot and then get data folder, and this will get the data folder for this plugin. So let's import file java.io, and then this is going to do is it's going to check if the directory exists, and if the directory doesn't exist, it's going to create the directory. So let's do directory.mkdir, and that mkdir is a fancy way of saying create a directory. So if the directory does not exist, anything with an exclamation point in Java means the opposite. So if the directory does not exist, then it will create the directory. So after we've done that, we can do file, just call it file because I'm creative, equals new and then file type, and it's going to be this dot get, or actually I could just do, dir, or dir, whatever you want to call it, directory, and then config.yml. So this declares the file. and then config equals, well actually we're going on to first go up here, right beneath the main class before the onEnable method, and type in, you want to make this public and static, so you want to type in public static config equals null. And the reason it's going to be equal to null is because we're soon going to change that. But first we want to create the class config class, and this is where all the config information is going to be eventually. So now we can go back down here and type in, let me just think for a second. Oh yeah, I want to do config equals new, and then config file. So this is going to be attached to a constructor that we create in the config, which is going to be over here. So that's where the constructor for the config is. And we'll come back here. I actually just first want to code the actual config. Just think. The first thing you're going to want to do is go up here before the config constructor and type in private file config file, and then we can type in private YML configuration config, and this is something that Bukkit has in hand, so we just imported YML configuration from Bukkit. And then we can do in the constructor here, the class constructor, we can do this.config, and then equal that to a new YML configuration. And then this.config file is config file, which we had called right here. Alright, so now we're going to want to create one thing I actually want to do first is another class. We're going to just leave this for a second. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but this is how I'm going to start out. And this one's going to be called Messenger. And this class is what I'm going to use to send messages all over types, like an info message to the console, a player message to a specified player, a severe message if anything goes wrong. Pretty much everything's going to be here. So the first one I want to create is, well, first of all, up here we have to type in private static final, and then a logger log equals logger dot get logger, and then in quotes in here you want to type in Minecraft. So this will allow us to log things to the console. And I'm actually gonna type in private static final and then string prefix. I'm just going to use this for now. This will make everything easier. And we want this to be the prefix that we're going to use before everything. So why don't we just use InvBackup. This is more going to be the console prefix because I wanted to also create a private static final string color prefix because the console doesn't support this type of color. So for the color prefix we're going to do like chat color dot, then we'll do chat color dot like let's just do red, why not red, plus, and then we'll do InvBackup. I want to actually capitalize the B here. I'm actually going to rename, oh, I can't rename, I'll have to do that some other point. And then we want to do plus, and this is the chat color the actual text is going to be written on. So chat color dot, and then we'll do, just do green, because that's very nice and out there. And now that we've created those, we can just do public static void severe. This is severe message sent to the console, and then we want to create the string MSG, which is the string that's going to be asked for when sending a message, and then we want to log.severe and the message and MSG. Yeah. And then I want to create public static info, and this is going to be another type of log And this is just going to be a normal log, not a severe log. Like, there's nothing wrong, but just sending a message to the console. Sorry, I forgot to make that a void. And then I can create one more, and that's just going to be broadcast. For now, well, actually, no, I might as well do all that we'll need for now. So broadcast is going to be bucket.broadcast message, and then we want this to be color prefix plus and the message. I'm actually going to do for these two logs, you just want to have the normal prefix, but you want to do prefix plus message and prefix plus message for the severe and the info. So then we can just do one more for now. Probably add more to this later, and that'll just be player message, and then string. This is going to take two strings actually, the message and then the player in the form of bucket .org bucket.org.bucket.entity, and then we want to do player.send message, or p.send message is when I defined player as, and then you want that to be color prefix plus message. Alright, so we got that set up. Now we can go back to our config file, which is one thing I want to complete this episode. It's going to be a big, or just semi-complete, just actually get it running. And then we want to do public boolean and then load. And what this is going to do is it's going to return false. The reason this is a boolean is because it's going to return false if it didn't load correctly, and return true if it loaded correctly. So we're going to try a try statement in order to get this result, and then we want to do if config file that exists. So this is going to do if the config file does not exist, because that's what the exclamation point means. Create a little if statement here, and then I'm going to do config file dot create new file, and then we're going to add something in there. I'm just going to write a note for myself. So we have to try there. So we did that, and then we want to config dot. So if this is after that, if the config exists already, it won't even do that. But we don't want to add an else here, because this is going to happen even if the config does not exist. So you want to actually load the config now. So that's config file. Alright, so we did that. Then that will return true, because this means it's loaded correctly. And then what we're going to do is down here, we're going to type in catch and then exception E. It's gonna say messenger dot severe. I must have typed that in wrong. I murdered that. So it's gonna go back to our messenger class we just created. We're gonna type in messenger dot severe, and we're gonna type in config did not load correctly, and then returned the error, or returned error, and then we want to type in e.getMessage. This will get the throwable exception message, and then you want to return false if it fails to load. So down there you want to add return false. Alright, so that's our loading method. There's one more method I want to add down here though, and that is boolean save. I want to just type in another try statement. So if we want to try config.save, you want to try and save the config file, and we want to catch an exception here, another exception E. The E is just, defining the exception, of course. It's not an actual, just an exception. So you want to catch the exception, then the inception. If things don't go well, and I'm going to type in the same kind of thing we did above, except config failed to save, returned error. Now I want to do plus e.get message. Alright, and then down here, you want to add return true. So this is going to return true no matter what. So, now that we've done that, let me just check our time here. That's a fairly decent episode. I want to go back to first things first. I actually want to load the plugin. So, yeah, I have a few more things I want to do before the end of the episode. So, now I've created that. If the config.load, if it fails to load correctly, which is that method we created before, then we want to do this.get server want to get the plugin manager, which is the main manager that manages all the plugins for Bukkit, and then disable this plugin, because if the config doesn't load, that's a bad thing. And we don't want people using the plugin if there's going to be just a bunch of severe errors thrown because the config is just not loaded correctly. And then we want to throw a illegal state exception saying that the config was not loaded correctly. Alright, so that's basically it. One more important thing actually you want to add is a plugin.yml, and I'm actually just gonna copy one of my other ones from like here. Just copy it from here. And I'll just show you how you make it. I don't want to make any mistakes when I make it though. Then you want to drag that over here, and when I create the name of the plugin as InvBackup. So this is where we type in the main package. So com.runetunecraft .plugins.InvBackup, and you're gonna want to type this whole thing in here. So main, and you don't want to have any spaces or stuff like that. So main, and then InvBackup.InvBackup. So pretty much it's com.runetunecraft.plugins.InvBackup, like we had there, and then the main class, which is InvBackup. So this is the main class, and then you want to create the name, and this is what the plugin manager is going to call this plugin, and then the version 0.0.1. Your author, just write your name. This is for another plugin. We can get rid of that for now. And then description. I'm gonna type in Runetune, or the description for your plugin. So backs up player inventories. For now, we'll just type that in. We'll probably change that later, but right now I just want to kind of get this plugin running. So now we want to type in file, export as a jar file, and I want to export InvBackup to anywhere really. I'm just going to call it like that. Make sure you select the whole thing, not like don't go into anything. Just select the whole package, then export it. Alright, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and get my server ready and load this plugin to make sure everything is working fine so far. Alright, so let's just go ahead and drag. Where did I put this plugin? There it is. Just put this in our plugins folder in our server and run quickly and see if we have any errors. And we don't. Cool. So, of course, right now the plugin does not have any function. So, I mean, there's not really any reason to use it right now, but we've got the plugin running and we've got some basic things set up. And if we go into plugins, does not look like... Oh, one major thing I forgot, I think. we actually have to type in... We actually have to create the method in load config. Something major that I forgot. On enable, you want to actually go to this method. So let's just quickly see if we have errors now. Let's just export this again. Sorry about that. It's my fault. And then we can put this, the new one, which is still under here, back in there, and run. And we may have errors now. Now that that's actually doing something, and we don't. Cool. If we go here, now the config is created. Of course, the config is just going to be completely empty. But for now, we're going to add things to it eventually, and we're going to add defaults and do all that stuff. Don't expect your first run or any runs to be completely error-free. I almost have an error every single time. The only reason we don't have an error right now is because this is completely and utterly basic. And I also knew what I was doing when I made it completely. But errors may occur, and errors may occur in this playlist that I create. Annoying little errors, which I'll probably end up fixing, even if it may be the next episode, or I'll probably try and end every episode error-free. But I don't know if that will not happen or something, but most likely that's how it's gonna roll. But yeah, welcome to this series, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Next episode, we're going to actually create some core functions and get this plugin, get some more core functions rolling for this plugin. One thing you're going to have to be aware of is the fact that coding does not take a short amount of time. Coding something big like this plugin down here, Player Mobs, it's a type of game mode that I'm creating right now. It's taken me so far around 3 weeks to make, and there's a lot of classes. I mean, there's not tons of classes, but each class is fairly sizable. That's not a good example, but each class is fairly sizable. And yeah, so you can't expect that you can't expect to have this plugin done today. I mean, if you watched all these tutorials already, you watched this whole playlist and it's all uploaded now, you may end up completing it, but it does take time, and you have to be aware of that. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the series if you continue to watch us. And please like, subscribe, comment. If you have any errors, you can comment those for now. I'll be setting up an error site where you can just post your errors, and I can help you fix them on Runecodes forums. But anyway, yeah. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.